Hey programmers, grandMA3 and MAtricks are the same idea that we had with grandMA2 and MAtricks, but now they allow for X, Y, and Z options, new shuffle options, new invert options, new multiple selections, and well, it's just a lot more built out than it used to be. We access our MAtricks either from the encoder bar when we need quick access, or by opening the window, which is especially useful if you want to store it in a view. Here's how the window options are separated. Remember how we had X, Y, and Z axes in our grid selection window? Well, the idea here is that we can apply our MAtricks on each of those axes by using the options in the X, Y, or Z sections. We'll go through the options in a moment, and they're the same for each axis. These buttons on the side will toggle on or off each axis, so you could choose to only look at one axis at a time if you like. Vertically in this window, our options are organized by grids, layers, and shuffle. And the same idea here with these toggles if you want to simplify what you see in this window. By the way, all 6 of these toggles are also available in the Windows settings. Still in the top menu is an option to make your current MAtrix selections active or inactive. Inactive is sort of like blind for MAtricks. It keeps whatever changes you've made in this window, it just doesn't apply them. If you do want to clear out all of your changes, then we use the reset button. The MAtrix pool works just like it did on grandMA2. We can either create a new matrix in the window or overlay and then store it here, or we can edit a new cell in the pool and create our matrix that way. Now let's take a look at how the MAtricks work with our new grid selection tools that we talked about in the last video. Remember, the options for the X, Y, and Z axes matrix are all the same. For now, let's try some examples on just the X-axis grid. I like to keep an eye on the fixture sheet when working with MAtricks. Well, honestly, I like to keep an eye on the fixture sheet at all times when I'm programming. It makes it real obvious what I'm doing here. And if you have the grid selection window open when playing with MAtricks, you can see the same information here as well in a super visual way. Let me grab this all spots group. 8 fixtures, all on the X-axis. If I just next through here, I can see my current selection in yellow in the grid, yellow in the fixture sheet, and it's also yellow in the layout. I also see this number in the X option changing every time I hit next. Notice here that the X number is not the fixture number. It's actually the grid tile number on the X-axis. If I use previous to get back to fixture number 1, then this cell displays a 0. You can also use the plus and minus buttons here in the MAtricks to move around in this selection. It's the same thing as hitting next or previous. And if you like to work on the screen, you can also click and drag on any of these options to change the value. Blocks, we remember, will take our selection and marry up a number of fixtures based on our block count. So let me set this to 2, which means as I next through, fixtures 1 and 2 are a block, 3 and 4 are a block, and so on. Check out how it looks on my grid. I only see what looks like 4 lights. Each tile represents a block, so fixtures 1 and 2 are overlapped in the same space, and 3 and 4 are occupying the same space, etc. down the line. Let me reset that and try a group of 2, which basically is going to sort me through my odds and evens. As I next through, you can see the fixture selection in the fixture sheet, and we only see 2 tiles in the grid. One of them represents our odds, and one represents our evens. We're not seeing all of our fixture numbers in the grid, just a visual representation of our groups. And that is yet another argument for keeping an eye on the fixture sheet. Let's try groups of 3. I've got 3 tiles in the grid, and the fixture sheet makes it really obvious that I'm alternating through my selection by every 3rd fixture. I'm going to skip wings for one moment and go to width next because it can be easily confused with groups. If I set a width of 3 and next through, I get the same selections as if I had set a group of 3. But in the grid selection window, instead of our grouped units occupying the same space, they actually start running down the y-axis. So I could add in the y-axis matrix to this as well, and next through in rows of this selection instead of just columns. And if you're thinking, hey, this looks like kind of a fast way to make new grids, you're right. If you like the setup that you're creating, you can always store the selection into the group pool, and the grid setup will be remembered. Wings is the selection tool that we remember from grandMA2 that will split our selection based on a quantity of wings, like this wing of 2 that allows me to select the first and last fixture, then the second and second to last fixture, and so on. Because it's a wing of 2 and I have 8 lights selected, we see 4 grid tiles in the grid selection window. If I set this same group to a wing of 4, that leaves me with just 2 selections that I can next through, so I see 2 tiles in the grid. And at this point, you're probably wondering where your pan and tilt wing options are. They're now part of the invert options, so there's a couple of places you have to look. Down at the bottom under invert style, we can see this is already set to pan, but if I try to pan these 2 lights together right now, it's not happening. That's because we need to enable the invert, then we can get our pan wing working. If you take a look in the fixture sheet, anytime you're using invert, you'll see the fixtures that give the inverted value shown in green. Same in the 3D window and the layout view. And we don't have to be doing this pan invert on a wing. We could choose a block or a group and apply an invert as well. Invert styles also include a tilt option, a pan and tilt option, and an all, so we can invert any parameter. The invert X, Y, and Z options at the bottom give us an option to invert everything on the X, Y, or Z axis. But I think where you'll end up using this the most is later on when you're referencing a matrix and a phaser's recipe and you want to do something like change direction. For now, let's move on to the layers section of the MAtricks. Think of this as your alignments when you want to set a range of values on timing, speed, or phase. If I wanted to lay out my intensity coming up on these units, I could set the delay to something like 0 through 3, and that would be applied with the respect to any other settings I have going over here in the X-axis options. Let's try this with our LED tiles group and align our delay timing over the Y-axis. So this way I get a different result. The speed and phase can be used to set ranges in your phasers, and there's too much to cover with phasers to show that in this video. Something else we didn't have in grandMA2 matrix was this multiple selection option that's hiding down here in the bottom right corner. We can have 2 active selections in our MAtrix. As I touch the active selection button, I toggle between 1 and 2. Right now, I don't have anything selected in 2, but I could choose to put any fixture selection in this second set. Or if I wanted to copy the selection of number 1, I could go to that active selection and hit Copy Set. Now the same fixtures are in each selection. Any changes that I make in the MAtrix at this point are held in whatever my current active selection is. So with this selection 2 currently being a copy of selection 1, I could use selection 2 if I wanted to try out some different MAtrix options, and if I don't like them, I just switch back to selection 1. Something else you can do with these 2 selections, which is way cooler, is that you can copy values. Let me set up my selection 1 as my spots 1 through 4, and my selection 2 will be spots 5 through 8. Back on selection 1, I'm just going to throw up a really simple intensity and position. Now I go to selection 2 and hit Copy Values, and I've got a quick clone in my fixture sheet. Shuffling is available in a couple of places. There's a shuffle option at the bottom right that will shuffle up our selection order on the X, Y, and Z axis, and it's a quick way to randomize our selection. Notice that every time you hit the shuffle, not only can you see the selection changing in the grid, but you'll also see values appearing in the X, Y, and Z shuffle cells. There are over 32,000 variations for each axis, and each time you hit this shuffle button at the bottom of the screen, you get a new number on each axis. If I reset, and this time use the individual axis shuffle option, then I can step through each set of shuffles one at a time. While you're shuffling here, you can choose to change between linked and unlinked. With link selected for this LED grid, notice that as I shuffle on the X-axis, it's the same shuffle over each row. If I reset and set this to unlinked, then raise the X shuffle, now each row takes on a unique order. Under Shuffle is another option called Shift Selection. This will move your selected fixtures on the X, Y, or Z axis. Let's try it with just these 4 fixtures selected. In the grid, they're placed starting at 0 with fixture 21, then 22, 23, and 24. If I X shift forward, 21 moves to the end and the others shift left. They continue to shift as I raise this X shift value. And of course, they shift the other direction when I lower the X shift value. Between the new selection syntax, new grids, and now the MAtricks, you should be pretty well set up when it comes to fixture selection in grandMA3. Next week, let's talk about something completely different, okay? See you then.